Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity to get together and just talk about you and talk about business and talk about career and talk about growth. We just ask that you would let this be a time of sharing and ideas, and that you would just speak into everybody's life, and there everybody would take a couple of things away, a couple of inspirations away from the Holy Spirit. We definitely need you, Lord, and we ask you to just show up and just take over the meeting. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey folks, we will dive right in. I think we have a couple of first timers, right or wrong? Yes. Yes. Albert, this is your first time?
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to meet you guys.
Good to meet you. Tell us about you.
Basically, I moved from Southern California to, I guess, Salt Lake in October. And I love Texas. I love the culture. It's a lot more Christian friendly. And yeah, I just love the freedom here, and the opportunity, and just the open mindset of the people here. And I love Gateway Church and Pastor Robert. He got me. His first sermon really got to me. It's been a while since I heard such a deep, biblically connected sermon that just so practical and gospel based, which is the most important. And I want to join this group just to be connected with the neighborhood and with the community, and especially the church and fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. So thank you.
Great. Well, we've been running this business group for a couple of years now, a little bit more than 2 years. And it's a really interesting thing. We talk a lot about business and career and growth, entrepreneurship, business problems.
By the way, I'm an architect. So
okay, yeah. Very cool. Well, this is a good time to be an architect in Texas.
Yeah, a lot of development.
You are growing. In fact, actually, I just heard that Trophy Club, that they're having like 20 offers per house right now. Yeah, it's really crazy. And Charles Schwab is coming there, but also just everybody, like just a lot of people are coming here from especially the West Coast right now. So cool. Elise, you've been with us before, right?
I'm sorry, I still have my daughter's name on it. Let me take it off.
Yeah.
Yes, I was here. I didn't make it the year once, and then I didn't make it the last one after that. So yay, I'm here today.
Yeah, good to see you. No problem. So just very briefly, so I'm Brian Howard. I'm one of the co-leaders of this group. I'm in sales in the software industry, sales management. So that's me, Albert, Jordan. You run a couple things.
Yeah, I'm pretty busy, but at the moment, I'm the founder of a nonprofit that I started back in May, and I'm a entrepreneur, small business owner in marketing, sales, advertising.
Yep. Dustin, say hi.
Mm-hmm. Hello, I'm Dustin Wallace. I'm actually not an entrepreneur, but I am looking to become one of these days. Once I choose to step out. So I work in the automotive industry. I was 12 years as a technician, and now work for a extended warranty company approving just mechanical claims. And so I'm trying to learn from these guys. I've been with the group, man, over at least a year now. Good friends with Jordan and Brian and Dennis now. So yeah, that's it's been a great group, great band of brothers.
Awesome. Dennis, you want to give a little quick hello?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dennis, and I am also not an entrepreneur, and I help different companies kind of improve different things. So if there are some processes that are covered with dust and can be improved, I will be improving them, or just taking the next level, automate it. anything that can be improved should be improved. That's more or less what I'm doing.
Awesome. Awesome. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Brian. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good. You want to do a little quick intro as well?
Sure. Michael Foss. I started my own business last year and doing speaking, training, consulting. March 1st, a great time to start a new business to try to meet people. But actually it turned out to be really good and pretty exciting, a lot of fun stuff. But recently I also started a new role with a tech company, a startup company, who's in the freight forwarding space. And so I'm going to help them with kind of launching systems and process in their organization, heading up their operations team, starting with kind of the ocean transportation business out of North America to start.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks, Brian.
Very cool. Leslie, yeah, that name's more familiar.
Yes. Sorry, did you call my name?
No, I was just going to let you introduce yourself real quick.
Oh, yes. Actually, I started this group maybe a month ago, actually, in January. I think with COVID and being laid off as an RN, which you would think nurses would not be laid off.
Exactly.
It's not true. That is not true. A lot of nurses have been laid off. I came from the Baylor system, so they laid off about 1,200. And this pushed me to want to, I guess, start selling my own personal product. So that's what I've been doing, which I think I'm probably going to get together and get some advice. I don't know a thing about business. I'm a consumer, right? So that's the only side I know from business. So I hope to learn. I appreciate it. Last week, I printed out all the notes you guys on the 2 weeks ago. Great stuff. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is what I really want to do. So that's where I'm at. I'm hoping to learn how to really structure a business. I don't know how to do that. I told you guys I was laid off last May. And 2 weeks ago, I finally got a job at a hospital, another Baylor hospital. So I'm happy about that. But I'm still going to be doing this because I felt this was something I needed to do. So yeah, that's why I didn't join your virtual because it was on a Monday and the Friday prior they hired me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So
congratulations.
That's me. I don't know if there's anyone here in the group that has actually made a product to sell. That would help me a lot. Is there anyone? No. Either way, I'm sure a lot of
I started a website that was a very expensive and lengthy endeavor, but it wasn't a product, it was a service. But yeah, you should, among the group, I'll bet there'll be enough advice to be interesting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to share my screen. We already prayed. So kind of the working, by the way, we're streaming on Facebook too, for now, although when we get into personal prayer, we won't do that. So the kind of the working title for tonight is Stories and Imagination That Drive Engagement. Obviously with Leslie's product. So in case some of you guys don't know, it's a natural toothpaste. That's actually pretty popular with her friends and family. So you can imagine how stories and imagination would be really critical to her, right? To help her in terms of marketing, telling the story, helping people to use her imagination. But I think whether you're telling a story or you're using your imagination, I think that's absolutely critical. I mean, Dennis, although he's a very calculating type of person, has to use imagination in his problem solving at work. So this topic is great for entrepreneurial reasons, but honestly, this is incredible for your everyday business. And let me just tell you, I think, and I'm going to flip it to Jordan here in a second, but I think there's a lot here that is really the heart of God. When you think about God and, basically takes imagination and then he creates things out of that. In fact, Jordan give us a scripture, which we'll cover in a few minutes. But yeah, I'm excited about the topic. You can see there's not a lot of bullets. We do have some scriptures too, but it'll be mostly a roundtable. But Jordan, what would you add to that as far as, the importance of the topic to all of us?
Yeah, I mean, stories are so pivotal. I could talk all day about stories and how important they are to our everyday lives, not to mention business. But the imagination aspect is something that I know you and I started discussing last week, and it really just kind of took off. It started out from just kind of a thought of, and I'll just use Leslie as an example. Leslie has, great product and things, and she has an idea in her mind of where she wants to take this. And so there's an end result. There's an end where we want to be. And so my daily actions is the choice that am I making today? Is it going to achieve that end result that's out there at the end of the spectrum? That's where this conversation started. And I think, Howie, that's going to be something that I think we should discuss at some point tonight is in business, in all of this, am I making the decisions today to see the fulfillment of that imagination that dream, as some people would probably call it as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I'll have something when we get to that. I will have something to add to that. Hopefully I remember to do that. I'm going to actually write myself a reminder note on this because it's pretty big. It's not my idea. It's Jordan B. Peterson's, but he talks about it a lot.
Yeah.
So I think before we share the scriptures, it'd be really nice to hear from everybody in terms of what's nice about this group tonight is we do have really a diverse group of roles and background and jobs. That's kind of nice because I think the answers will be a little bit different. So I might call on Michael first. Michael, one of the things that you have to do in your personal business, but I imagine as a startup too, is you have to use imagination and storytelling. So how do you see that playing a role now? And then how can you leverage that more?
Yeah, great question, Brian. So I learned a bunch of stuff over the last year since March 1st. And one of the things I learned that was really helpful for me is how to write your business as a story in terms of how Don Miller talks about it.
Oh.
So some of you may know about Don Miller, who runs Story Brand. He's got a couple of great books out, Leslie, and I'd recommend and a couple of easy reads, something called Marketing Made Simple. But he really talks about, it's amazing. He loves stories. And so he says in every business, there's a story. And there's usually 4 main characters. There's a villain, a victim, a hero, and a guide. And in your business, you might say, what do you want to be? You think you might want to be the hero, but really you want to be the guide, and you want your customer to be the hero.
Oh, okay.
And what you're doing is basically saying, here's where you are today. So you introduce a conflict, that they're facing, and then you portray a beautiful destination. And then you tell a foreshadow the stakes of what it's going to be like when you get there. And then you tell them how you can help guide them to get from where they are today to where they want to be. So like in Leslie's case, your situation is after you're a kid, you get 1 set of teeth for the rest of your life. Right. And, and here where you are, and we introduce all kinds of things that are not good for your teeth, very serious, dangerous. Most people, you can say, end up with cavities or missing teeth or dentures. But the compelling argument that you want to get them to, the destination, is you want to have your own teeth be strong, healthy, beautiful, white, and last forever with no pain. And here's how you do that, with my product. And it really talks about how he's studied a lot of websites and a lot of people and how to get to buy it. I wish I'd studied it before I made my first website. But I've learned a lot since then. In fact, I'm helping coach a lady who's running her own real estate business, and we're in the middle of going through her website and her content based on this idea and this approach. So
wow.
Anyway, yeah, it's really cool. I love it. And it's no difference in a small business and in a big business. Whether you're it's really the same thing, right? So in my business today, our tagline is we want to make global trade easy for everyone. And we're developing this really cool content, software content that makes it really easy to ship, from any place to any place. So we want to make, anyone who wants to ship globally a hero, and we want to help guide them through that process because it is pretty challenging without someone to help you. So, yeah.
That's very appealing. Just that story. I mean, if I wanted to literally, sell to another country or buy from another country, I wouldn't know what to do. So if you have a process and software to make that easy, that is a great guiding kind of thing. So thank you. That's great stuff.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Brian.
So, Jordan, you've got a nonprofit, you've got a business as well. What role, and I know this is a passion topic of yours,
Yeah.
but what role does your imagination or vision casting or storytelling, and I know those are like three different things. I'm just giving you a lot of baseball field to play with here. Where do you want to go with that? Like, what role does that play? How can you have it play more of a role?
Well, it's definitely the role in the day-to-day life, because you got to know where you're going tomorrow before I'm acting today. And so, I mean, that's the start of everything. Just like Michael was talking about, one of the first things I do when I work with a client is we discover a why, and then we discover where we're going to go. Because we can't operate anything until I know, who do I want my clients to be? How much do I want things to go for? Where do I want to be? You start casting these visions and you're setting milestones, so you know where you're going. But at the same time, you're writing a story of how do I want to get there? And it's ever changing. It always is, and it goes back, so you're constantly looking forward, but operating in today, looking forward and operating in today and adjusting, as things adjust, then you adjust, your story adjusts, but the last thing that we want to do, we talked about this months ago, is we don't want to be reactionary to what's going on. We want to be responders. When we're responders, we have authority. When we're reactionary, the event or the person or whatever, they have the authority. And so when we're responding, then we're saying my story is still intact, although I'm having to sidestep. I'm still in charge of the story.
Just keep on preaching, both of you guys. Just take the pulpit right now. Dustin, I mean, you obviously have a lot of ideas. You're a smart guy. You're a process guy. You like to break things down. You also have a natural optimism to you, just a spirit of optimism. What would you say? How does your imagination play a role in your life, in your growth? Right now, you're having to use imagination about ministry opportunities, but how does imagination play a role for you right now, and or storytelling, either one or both? And where can we take that?
Sure. So I don't know where I heard this from. It's probably Jordan Peterson somewhere or another famous speaker. But the saying goes, people don't always remember what you say, but how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to remember whatever we're conveying, whatever we're doing, what is the end result of how that person is going to feel once we're done with that interaction? Is your
That's good.
Is your purpose of your company a process? Is it a product? And are you achieving that? Through that. At my company, our saying is, we're going to be the best at what we do. So every time I have a conversation, every time I have a transaction, I need to make sure that am I at the best that I can be at that moment, and am I exuding that, right? And so I think we all need to step back and say, okay, well, what is the purpose of a company? And then are we conveying that at every step? And how are we making those people feel at those steps?
Got it. Gotcha. So that's really three things. You're conveying quality and excellence. You are actually stating that purpose. So you're telling that story out loud. And it's so interesting because people say, well, we want to share the gospel, with our actions, and if necessary, use words. That's actually not the gospel. The gospel is to share the words and your actions together. And so it's Dustin saying, it's great that you're motivated and you're delivering quality, but you still need to tell the story. And I completely agree. And I also agree that the way you tell the story is really critical, and leaving people, to feel, elevated after that experience is outstanding.
Right. And there's such a good reason why God gave us a heart. We're supposed to feel things. It allows us to feel alive. And so you really need to think about how do you connect with your customer, your consumer, your clients, through that, not just monetarily, but through the heart. How does that work? How does that interaction really look like?
That's good. I'll go next. I will say that I could probably be doing more of this. I need to slow down and ask God. Okay. So let's just get it out there on the table. I have been on a job search for over 8 months. I have been in reactive mode, right? Now that I have a job, I'll be working hard, but part of my mental part of that those cycles. By the way, in case you guys haven't heard, I started my new job today. So I don't know, maybe some people joined late. So praise God, some of you who've been following the journey. But and this group has been incredibly, by the way, let me just say, I know it's off topic, but let me just say, I remember a night, and some of you will, when I got a verbal job offer, and because of, I basically countered offered and they didn't like that. I actually lost that job, and I had to be on this call like an hour later. I really didn't want to do this call. I mean, I was devastated, right? And you guys were there for me. Sorry. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that road right now, but I love you guys and thank you very much. So that's beautiful to support each other. But I think the imagination side is something that I want to do more of right now that I have a little bit more free space, and I don't, mentally. And I think for me, I need to have an honest conversation with God. And maybe that's me going to Grapevine Lake for 3 or 4 hours and sitting there with my Bible and just asking the Holy Spirit, hey, we survived, you got me a job. What are you saying? And what is your imagination saying? So I part of it, I do have things that I can imagine, but I also want to kind of I want to give myself a reset, kind of like an imagination reset, and say, God, what are you doing that maybe I'm not big enough to believe in myself yet, or I'm not big enough to believe in this goal or whatever. So I think for me, I personally need an imagination reset, and I want to tap into God's goals and his imagination. So anyway, just an idea. I'm sure somebody will resonate with that. Leslie, I mean, we love your story and praise God for the job.
Thank you. I'm actually, you guys were talking about websites a little while ago. So I managed to get a website. It needs work on it. It's like I have all these ideas that come through my mind on what I want. I know my product has a story, but I'm passionate about it. So what I think with the imagination part, I'm not exactly sure how I would do that. I have my story and I understand it, and I see how the story can make other people have their own story because they're going to try my product, right? Mm-hmm. But the imagination part, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by the imagination part.
It could mean, imagining what's possible. It could be imagining the impact, and that's of course that kind of bleeds into storytelling. In your case, part of the imagination work is done because you have a product. So it's kind of like what's next down the road, right? What's around
Like
the
goal
corner?
setting, you mean like setting goals?
It could absolutely be that. Yeah, it could be that.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I've had so much time. You being off for 8 months without job. Same for me. Since May, I haven't had a job. Really, they furloughed me in March, and then May they just said, "Sorry, guys, we're laying you off."
Yeah.
But it's given me a lot of time of kind of educating myself. I also became a YouTube University student, right? So I looked on how to do businesses. What's shocking to me is that I could not find a lot of people like me that make toothpaste out of, in your kitchen, right?
Yeah.
I gown up like almost with a hazmat suit. I kid you not, because I have all the equipment, right? So I gown up with all that when I do that. So it's almost difficult for me. I don't know how to launch it. I don't know how to, other than just, okay, so my millennial kids were telling me that a lot of millennials don't look at websites anymore. And I'm like, explain that to me. What do you mean? Because my generation, we go on websites, we want the about, we want to know the vision, we want to know their mission statement. I want to know who you are before I invest money. But my millennials were telling me, no, we don't do that. We are real big on the Instagram. So all we need is one picture that can catch our attention and we will buy it. We can have a like a 10-second testimonial,
Yeah.
and we're hooked. And I'm like, wow, this changes my dynamic, because now I don't know how to approach this. How do I do the sales and marketing? But I don't know what you all's take is. Again, this is a product of a consuming, for consumers to either, it's sort of like, I guess, in the lines of cosmetic, but it's toothpaste. So I don't
I want to introduce you to somebody named Jenny. Jenny is somebody who goes to Gateway, and this individual was actually one of the daycare teachers for my oldest daughter for a few years, and she got into this type of cosmetic situation and started doing little videos. And now it's not right for me to say how much she makes, but it's incredible. Highly successful, and it was with videos like your kids were talking about. Happens to be on Facebook because this is a few years ago, and Facebook might still be great for that. But then I think Instagram is certainly where, if you want to go where the ball is going, you maybe do both, type situation. But yeah, I don't think that your kids are wrong. I mean, I think they're right. Let me give you an example. My daughter, and my daughter would talk to you too. During the early part of the pandemic, she somehow made a tie-dye shirt, and somebody saw it and said, "Would you make me one?" And then somebody else saw that, and then, "Where'd you get that?" And, "Where'd you get that?" And so she now has this business. It's called Mad Dyes Apparel, MADDYES apparel.com. And it has the website is mainly for ordering. And I set it up with a Google form and a simple WordPress page in a couple of, probably like 5 or 6 hours, I would say. But all of the work that she does is she basically gets her friends to take pictures in parking lots and in front of brick buildings. Actually, Jordan's been out there and knows the scene that where she takes her pictures. And then she will actually have orders come very frequently by just posting a new picture with an example of a tie-dye shirt,
Yeah.
And it's been very, a little bit viral. She sold quite a bit over Christmas. She sold a lot last spring, and then it kind of lulled off because she stopped. And then literally the business made her get back into it because people kept asking about it, even though she kind of slacked off. So I think the thing is, like, I think my daughter would help you, and she would be just flattered to have the conversation about how she sets that up, what some tips are for that. And also she's going for a PR degree at OU right now, and social media is part of that. My other friend Jenny grew a gigantic. I can't say how much. I know the number. It's a very large business, very lucrative business in close enough to your space that would make worthwhile. So just hit me up later.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I think your kids are not wrong. Does anybody have anything to add to Leslie as far as story or imagination or some of the side topics that we got off on too?
One of the, I think, it's interesting that you say that about millennials. It's all about sales funnels and getting attention. And so for your product, it might be worth having more than one way to receive potential customers. If you go to Don Miller's, like if you type in storybrand.com, you're not going to get to his normal website. You're going to get to whatever he's selling currently, which is a workshop or something. And that's really all his website is basically one sales page, and that's what he talks about. So it's really interesting. The more, if you scatter yourself too thin, it's hard to do really well in it. But if you pick a few social media outlets to really gather a following and interest, there's some that'll buy from it and some will want more information, and you can feed them back to your website and then they can follow the process of reading through and getting more details. So I think it's just a hybrid approach of, having multiple ways to communicate to your potential customers and get the word out.
That sounds really interesting. Maybe with someone can maybe see the website that I have. It's probably cheesy. Again, I think she was a young girl that I hired to do it for me. And it's like I'm stuck because I don't know how to offer the services on the website, which eventually I'd want people to order from there. I don't know if there are other places that they order from. I'm like so new, but eventually we'll get to that.
I can actually talk to you maybe about that. I do that for my daughter for essentially close to free, like pretty cheap. But yeah, I mean, you may need it to be more scalable than what I did. But the only thing that I would add, I was going to go to Dennis next. The only thing that I would add is I'm doing I'm kind of doing a side hustle right now. I'm developing some content about job seeking. The inspiration was originally that little Job Seekers Live thing I did on Zoom, as you know, Leslie, but I actually have so much more content than that. I actually have close to 100 slides now, and I have probably another 35 or 40 to go. I have 9 training modules planned for all of the things that I did in 2 job searches, and which things worked, which things were mistakes. So I'm turning that into content, and that's going to be a product that I'm going to sell. And I'll also offer it for free to certain ministry capacities. The reason I said that is I'm telling myself that I need to get the word out by sharing it with friends and family first, and basically giving them the information and getting their critiques and their ideas. So I think you should also be thinking about making batches for us, and because we can help you get the word out. Some of us will probably love it. Some of us would rather stick with traditional. But if you had a samples for friends and family, and then give us a card, and I know that's really old school, but the reason why I said that is I think Michael inspired that when he said having multiple paths to getting the word out, because that old school path of just like, here's my card, here's a sample, come follow us on Instagram and here's how to order. I think that old school stuff is actually kind of critical still. Whenever you watch Shark Tank, they're always talking about just the grind, just the hustle of making phone calls and stuff like that. So anyway, just that's another thought.
Well, I'm definitely going to give all of you guys, I hate calling it sample because it's not going to be a sample. It's going to be the actual bottle with, the allotted amount that I would to sell, right? So I want to give you guys also that. I don't have cards yet, but I would definitely, give you guys that and let me know your honest opinion.
Yeah, I think that's just exciting.
You know what? I wanted to just interject real quick. Me and my wife are always looking for alternative, I would say, products for our children. And so this might be something also that could be directed to children. So as a more natural, we try to be as natural as we can, but we're always looking for more natural products. We hate buying just generic toothpaste for our kids because it's awful stuff. It's filled with just junk. And so that might be another direction for you as well, to maybe target it to younger children, or even to parents who, take that a little bit more seriously than, more, traditional parents would.
Yes, agreed. I definitely want to target children because I have 5 grandkids. So my older grandkids will use the toothpaste, but the younger ones, I wanted to start using like a vanilla taste, but vanilla is so expensive. So I'm going to do that later on. But yes, that is my target. Absolutely. Because it really, oral hygiene really starts, the health of your oral cavity starts as when you're a child, and you're right. After our baby teeth are gone, that's the only set of teeth we have. That's it, But yeah, there's a lot of junk in toothpaste. If you guys have homework today, go home. You're home already. Read the back of your toothpaste, and there will be a warning sign. A lot of people don't read that.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So it says in your toothpaste, it'll say, should you accidentally swallow this or your child, please call the poison control or go to the ER.
That's encouraging.
So read it. So it's scary if you knew. I've been an ER nurse for Children's Hospital, and we've had, how many visits a month do we have of kids sucking the tube of toothpaste, and we have to charcoal them, right? Because it's very dangerous. It gets into their system and their bloodstream. They can potentially die. So we take it seriously in the ER, but people don't know this, right? Because obviously an adult's not going to suck a tube of toothpaste, but children do.
And I think that should be, once again, part of your storytelling. Maybe that should be an intro. Yeah, it's saying, hey, did you know that there is a warning label on your toothpaste? Go read it.
Wow.
What does it say?
So good.
Yeah, it's scary. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And how many things do our kids have that have warning labels that they eat?
Yes.
We can have separate sessions, by the way, because I want to move on to the next person. We can and should, when people want to, feel free to have breakouts. And I would love to be on this one because I think you kind of need a sales manager, which is not me, but it could be like I could help you a little bit. So yeah, I think this is really interesting stuff for sure. So you're the poster child for fun excuses for us to just talk about business. It's going to be Dennis, and then it's going to be Albert, and then it's going to be Edward. Hi, Edward. How are you doing? Thanks for joining.
Got on mute. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone.
So the question that you're going to be asked in a couple, so it's going to be Dennis, and then it's going to be Albert, and then you, is what role does imagination play in our business life, our career, our personal life? What role does imagination or storytelling play? You can either take one of those two paths, and you can see how it's uncorked some incredible discussion so far. So that's what you'll be asked, and there's no wrong answer. It's just whatever speaks to you. But Dennis, I hate to have you retell a story, but maybe the quick version of what you said a couple weeks ago, because it's so relevant. But I also want to give you free space to talk about more stuff in regard to casting the vision, imagination, or storytelling in business or career.
What story did I tell?
So
I don't even remember.
It was pretty long, so it may not be the right format, but it was basically you had an approach of statistics and facts, and it didn't really work. And then you told a simple Chick-fil-A story, and it worked.
Oh yeah. So Chick-fil-A story that actually comes from the advice one of my professors gave me, and the advice was that go out to the production floor. So I was a CFO at that point in time. Just go out to the production floor and spend 8 hours on the production floor. And if after 8 hours you do not come back to your office, absolutely embarrassed, not just surprised, not like shocked, but like absolutely embarrassed what you saw, you were just not looking hard enough. And I basically did exactly that. So I went to the production floor, and I knew people in the warehouse pretty well. And we just like, let's just look around and see what's going on here. And that was 2013. And on the warehouse shelves, we saw 2012 Chick-fil-A promotion bags. So it's clearly junk. It's like it's not even a question. This has to be on the dump for a year now, and it's still sitting on the shelf. So we basically started asking questions. Why? It's like, how did it get there? Why it was not scrapped? Why it was produced? And then I figured out, like, a short version of the story is that so Chick-fil-A ordered like 1,000 cases of bags, and in order to produce 1,000 cases of bags, first department has to produce like 1 million feet of film. And so the first department starts producing this 1 million feet of film, and they start producing that at 3 p.m. And basically by like 5:15, they're done. So they produce this 1 million feet of film. And then the guy looks at the watch, is like, well, my shift ends at 6. I'm just not going to bother to stop the machine and do the changeover, and like, I'll just let it run. And so he basically lets it run till the end of his shift. So now instead of 1 million feet of film, they produce like 1.5 million feet of film. Now it gets to the next department. And this is where kind of Toyota style should kick in. In Toyota, if anybody on the production floor sees that there is something wrong, they will absolutely raise their hands and say, look, guys, there is something wrong here. We have to investigate. We have to understand. Not in East Texas. In East Texas, what happens is that 1.5 million pounds of film, or 1.5 feet of film, come to the second department. The guy looks at the paperwork and says, my paperwork says there should be like 1 million feet of film, but I have 1.5. But you know what? Those people in the first department, they are like really smart. They definitely knew what they were doing. And so who am I to kind of challenge them? And so he just takes this 1.5 million feet of film and prints on it. And then the third department, they basically in the same situation. They say, we've got substantially more than we should, but now we are like the third department downstream. So, well, we're not going to challenge people, like we're not going to raise their hand, we're just going to produce it. And so they basically produce substantially more bags of this film than they should. And then finally the warehouse guy comes in and says, Chick-fil-A needs like 1,000 cases, but I have here 1,300 cases. So I'm just going to take 300 cases extra and just put them on the shelf. And so he just puts them on the shelves, and it collects the dust. So it was kind of a very embarrassing story, which sort of shows the human psychology, that there were like 4 people who clearly knew that something was wrong. Like it was not that they guessed. They had like all the information on their hands. They had all the ability to raise their hand, and they still didn't. So yeah, this is kind of the story.
So that's the story. Now tell us how you conveyed one story that was more mathematical and how that didn't really resonate, and then you told this one, and even though the savings, the impact was less, and then that'll help them understand the value of the simple story versus just facts alone.
Right. So this story, if you look at it in isolation, it didn't save a lot of money. So we basically identified, like $20,000 worth of bags that should be put on the junkyard. But since the story kind of talks to the people, and they're like, oh yeah, of course, we know this psychology, especially those who have been like in the manufacturing environment. It's like, yeah, of course. We've seen those people. We kind of know what their heads. We know this running over job orders. And then kind of in the parallel, I was involved in a similar project with a similar problem. And with that project, there was kind of a lot of analytical work done. There was a particular procedure written. And that kind of analytically deep dive approach, it actually saved like over $1 million. So it was like a big ticket item. It was a big success. But once you talk to people, they look at something that they can relate to. They're not looking like for a $1 million story, if that's just a lot of kind of mathematical facts put in a very nice pattern and in a white paper. And they would much rather go after their story, which only saved $20,000, but they like, yeah, we've been there, we've done that, we know what you're talking about.
Such a crazy thing. The way I wrote that down was, and I know a couple of you guys heard this a couple of weeks ago, but I knew we had enough new people or people that missed that it was important to share, because we're talking literally about imagination and storytelling tonight, so it's pretty critical. But the way I wrote that down was, a story that resonates can easily have a big impact where pure numbers may not really resonate and cause people to take action. So that's a great example. What else do you have in mind on this topic of, because I kind of hijacked your spot. What else do you have in mind for imagination or storytelling?
Well, my kind of initial reaction on the imagination, and that goes like to another great advice I've got from one of my professors, and that basically the advice is that once you start any project, sit down and imagine what good looks like. What are you gonna have at the end, where you say, yeah, okay, that was a success, or no, like it was a complete waste of time. And to give you a good example, like right now, I'm working on building a bridge between two very complex IT systems. And people who were there before me, they're like, well, okay, let's just do this and let's do that and let's do that. And I'm like, well, how do you know whether what you're doing is right, whether it gets you anywhere close, or you're just doing redundant stuff? And so we took a step back, and actually we decided that their good looks like is that there is an inclusive list of 14 reports. And once those 14 reports run, that's it. If out of 14 reports, only 13 run, this is a failure. If 14 reports run and nothing else works, this is a complete and utter success. And so now every single step that we take, it's very easy. Is a step necessary to run 14 reports? If yes, we must do it. If no, then we don't do it. Life became like so much easier once we took some time and kind of imagined exactly what are we going to have as our end product. We still don't know how to get there, and that's what we are spending like tens of hours of time. But spending a couple hours and saying like, well, okay, this is what we have, and this is how we're going to gauge ourselves. That was a kind of a lifesaver.
It's incredible. Do you guys resonate with that? When you start a project, imagine what good looks like. Did that speak to anybody else but me? Because that blew my mind. I mean, I think I should do that on everything any medium to important work or entrepreneurial task. I feel like Leslie should do that like this week. Take yourself into forward. What does that look like? How can I sell my first 200 bottles? What does that look like? Good. I love it. Okay. Well, we are going to call on our good friend Albert to dive in and share something. Or, by the way, it's not like you have to give us a teaching. You can just share a question or share a thought or a challenge or a problem even on imagination or storytelling.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to share and talk and learn. First, I'm very humbled and by the group here. The wisdom that's kind of in this group is quite amazing. And this is kind of a different angle. I'm a kind of different kind of animal, and I need to sometimes come out of my echo chamber with different type of mindset that people to expand my horizon. And this question is quite fascinating because imagination is what got me into my industry as an architect. I'm more of an artist than an architect, but I do technical work to get my product built. So this is quite amazing. And I delved into this topic from a different, like from an artistic angle many years back. And I still am fascinated by the concept of imagination and creativity. And from the biblical point of view, I feel that we all have a spark of creativity or imagination longing or this drive, because our father is a creator, and of course, being the child of a creator, we create. That's why if any child just would grab a crayon and would always try to make things automatically, it's like birds flying, just the way we are. And what you guys are doing is basically, I believe, what our father does. That's why we just have this natural tendency to do this. So I'm here to observe, and the kind of products I produce are behemoths, and it takes a long time, and it's not that scalable. So there's the reward of walking back and looking at the product I make and see people living in it. At the same time, it takes about a year of very high-powered, like focused work, going through the building department, which is a monster of a DNV, to get something built. So there's my artistic side tend to cringe. But I'm basically, I want to join this group, one for the spiritual side, the other is just to see what other people are thinking, and just to kind of get out of my, if I just talk to other fellow engineers or architects or people in my field, you tend to only be in a, again, you tend to just look, you say, chasing your own shadow, your own tail. And it's good to meet other universes. Every human being seems like a whole universe in itself. You to talk to somebody, it's quite fascinating. And the way you guys talk about products and things is it's a complete different angle. The drumbeat of my industry, it takes a long time to build. So when you think about what you talked about, seeing what's built, and it starts from someone's image in someone's head, it goes down to a napkin sketch, and eventually it gets to a concept drawing, to 3D rendering, to eventually a real building. And all this blows my mind was actually built. But what Leslie is doing, I think, and what all of you are doing is quite amazing. I dealt with a lot of industrial designers and the people that design phones and other products, and you can just go to go to any supermarket and just look at shampoo bottles, and you compare, why is this shampoo bottle different from another shampoo bottle? One is slightly translucent, the kind of fonts they use, the scale. One has a feminine kind of arc to it. One seems, if you look at a shaving cream for a guy, looks almost weaponized. Why are you drawn to certain products? So there's imagination is an amazing topic, and we all have the spark of God in us. I think that's why we imagine. I'm just here to learn, and I'm not sure where I want to pivot, but I do want to do something that's more scalable or that can be produced quicker. It takes a massive village to build a building, and sometimes I don't have the patience. I want to just kind of create things on the fly, and I'm more of an inventor. I realized over time. I just can't contain myself, and sometimes the building that I do, it has its limits. It's kind of a paradox. You have unlimited potential, but you have to, but there's some ground. You can't do certain things. But I'm just trying to find a direction. I'm just very fascinated by this group and the dynamics that you guys have here, and I look forward to hearing more. And if I can give any input, I'll be very happy to help out. Hopefully I can show up the next coming weeks. My son's gonna have soccer, and he's gonna finish at 7, so I might come in a little late if I do, but hopefully I can still join you guys.
Great.
You can ask any questions too. I'm a student here, so I'll probably be asking more questions. I'm not even sure what to ask yet, but I'm just here to absorb. Thank you.
Thank you. There was actually a lot of good stuff in there, to be honest. That was really good. So Edward, do you have enough of a sense of kind of the question in the background to share anything, a question, a comment? How does imagination help you in your business or career, or how would you like to leverage imagination more, or storytelling, or both, or something different? This is kind of your floor, unless you don't want it, in which case we'll go to the next thing, which is fine too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is exciting. I think Albert hit on something, and also Dennis also hit on something I really like what Dennis was saying about what good looks like, and I feel like that's a really good thought to hang on, because that's something that I can share with my team to get them thinking about what do they want to see, what is the end result that they want to see in working on a project for a client. How are they going to get them there? What are the steps? And to really give them a bigger vision of that. So that's exciting. And in a sense, also the whole design aspect of things. I love what Albert said about design as well, and being an architect, because I love like architecture, and I get sucked. I can go down a road of just looking at buildings or God's architecture. And what Albert was saying was just absolutely spot on, because I've been all over the country and I see God's infinite design on this, well, even on the US, you know, from the mountains in Arizona and the cacti to the trees and the brush in Texas to the hills and mountains in Pennsylvania, you know, and it's just amazing the inspiration or what he is capable of doing. But how do I guess going back to the question is like implementing a story, telling a story, or maybe showing a vision. That's interesting concept. I jumped into this, and I apologize for being late, but I jumped into this. It's kind of an exciting topic, because that's probably an area where I can develop my skills more to communicate more effectively, either with my team or to communicate more effectively with my clients or my boss, for that matter. And it's really helping me to get a vision of where I want to take my team, or where I want to give the client an opportunity to see what their potentials, their capabilities are, and how do we move them there? What's necessary? What's required to move them to that next step, or to maybe fix something that someone else has attempted to build for them and it hasn't worked out, and what their potential is. Because I think that in some cases we may have to redo what another company has done due to limited experiences, resources, a number of different things, and how we can re-establish confidence with the client after, you know, spending tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so it's that storytelling that it does to me, or it can do a couple things. It can help establish a relationship with the client or the member, but it can also help inspire, I think, and give them, you know, that hope that something can be done, that there is that potential. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much the thing that I need to do, is to use that imagination that God has given me to help my team and to work with clients a little bit more. And excuse me, I got dogs. That was quick. Normally they yap for a good 5 minutes, but essentially it's that it is to help tell a story or show the potential or an opportunity, or to establish a relationship. And that's how I may use it, and I've used it in the past. I'm not the best storyteller, but obviously this is a very, very good topic in which we can build on.
I think, when you are working with those clients, you can also ask them, what is your story so far? Instead of you having to invent the story, and I think there's a place for that. But I think if you figure out where they've been as a customer, why did you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and you ended up with kind of like plan B? What happened? What was plan A? What were you guys going for? And how, tell me your story. So I think part of tonight we're a little on the narrow side of storytelling and imagination, but part of storytelling is absolutely discovering what our business partners or our customers, what their story is, because then I think if I understand their story well enough, if I deeply understand their story, then I kind of become part of that story, and I can become part of the solution too. Who was it that was saying that? I think Michael said something like that about, oh yeah, make the customer the hero and you be the guide. So I think if I can understand their story, then maybe I can be the guide better. So I think maybe that's an angle too.
100%. And that's really good, because I mean that's the whole Donald Miller story brand, which is really, really good. Is understanding that and helping the customer to be the hero, that it's not about my company or me per se, but what we can do to help them be the focus for their clients and their services, or helping the service or the customer be the hero of that story as well. And I think the one that Don in the story brand book, he used a plumber, or maybe it was one of his speeches that he spoke on. But essentially, your life is out of kilter when your bathroom or one of your pipes are clogged, and you want to get back to that normalcy. And so you're waiting. So how do you become the hero to say, hey, we're going to get that taken care of, and you're going to go back to that normalcy? So I think that's also a really, really good point as well.
So good.
And that's a really good, for me, that's a really good reminder, because good grief, how did I forget story brand? So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael, for that. And whether it be a toothpaste product that Leslie's making that helps me feel better about my kids or my own self, or whether it be Dustin conveying the company's mission and leaving the customer with that feeling, or whether it be you helping to resurrect projects, or Albert taking customers forward on a journey that's a year or more sometimes in these creative architecture. One of the sub threads I think we can all remember too is that there's a crisis of trust out there. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a crisis of trust. So if we can try to understand their story and take them forward with imagination, and we can do that in a way where we can convey that they can trust us, I think that's a really big deal. When Dennis is doing these IT projects and trying to tie complex systems together, and he's done his homework, one of his jobs is to convey the imagination, but also the trust. Because I feel a burden right now in my heart that in our marketing and in our sales or in our business development, that there's a crisis of trust in the world right now, particularly in the US, but probably everywhere. And I think you can really provide that peace to people by conveying trust. I want to share some scriptures. I'm going to call on Jordan to read at least some of those real quick.
I have another one that I'm going to add at the end.
Okay, good. So why don't you go, Taylor, I feel like I accidentally talked too much tonight. So can you just read all the scriptures? I'll put this one up first.
Sure, not a problem. So 1 Corinthians 2, 9 and 10. That is what the scriptures mean when they say, no eye has seen, nor ear has heard, and no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. But it was to us that God revealed these things by his Spirit, for his Spirit searches out everything and shows us God's deep secrets.
That's awesome. Anything to add to that, or kind of any thoughts around that, on imagination with that at all?
I think it shows God's longing for us to be imaginative. Obviously in verse 10, that he longs to show us these deep secrets, these things. Wow. But there's a process,
That's awesome. It's funny to see imagination right there in the New Testament. And
yeah, I think so too on this. When he's speaking about for those who love him, not only is it about, you talked about trust. What is that relationship with the customer too? Are you building that trust? Are you continuously building that with the customer?
It's good. It's good. Anybody else have anything jumping out to him on this verse?
Yeah, for me, it's don't limit what God is doing. It's basically saying, you know, no one has seen or heard what he is preparing for us. You know, and I go through this process. I just started it a couple of years ago, but it's called The One Word book, written by John Gordon. It's a great book, easy to read. You can read it in less than an hour, but it's a nice process to go through kind of what do you need in your life? What is God wanting to do in you and through you? And my word of the year is possibility, because I don't want to limit what God can do. And when you do that, you know, you're just basically like saying, we have no clue about how amazing he is and what he can do. And so, you know, to me, it's just like, this is so inspiring, you know, just to read this and to have a sense of awe about, you know, just all we have to do is love him, and he's going to take care of us in a way we can't even imagine. So it's pretty amazing. Amen.
Outstanding. Jordan, here's the second one.
Hebrews 11:1-2. Faith shows us the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. Through their faith, the people in days of old earned a great reputation.
What do you think about that one?
I made the comment earlier before everybody was on that that our entire faith is an imagination. That there's a story, and we're buying into it, and we're buying into the imagination of where we're going and what our purpose is. And it's through faith that we believe that and we receive that. And so it's just, you know, just understanding how important it is. And I'm actually gonna, when we're done with these, I got another one that's gonna tie in well.
Yeah, actually, that might have been, I was trying to look up Romans and my computer was frozen. Is this the reference you gave me?
Yeah, Romans 4:17.
Yeah, it's not coming up. Can you just read it?
I can.
If it takes a second, that's okay. All right.
Yeah.
I have a problem here, it looks like.
Okay.
I'll come back to this because I don't have any more scripture to share. Just you reading it.
So Romans 4:17, the back half of the verse says, in the presence of him who he believed, even God, who gives life to the dead and calls into being that which does not exist. The imagination of that, you know, calling something that doesn't even exist in. That's the realm God lives in every single day.
Can you read that one more time for me? I have some distraction in the background. I admit, I'm sorry. Can't help it.
Yeah. No problem. I'm actually going to try to read another translation. So it says, that's what the scripture means when it says, I have made you the father of many nations. He is our example and father, for in God's presence, he believed that God can raise the dead and call into being things that don't even exist yet.
So not to play off of that, but I told, before the meeting started, I told you that it took some imagination even for Abraham to be an intercessor and to say, God, what if there was only 10 in Sodom and Gomorrah? What if there's only 30? What if there's only 20? I don't remember the increments, so forgive me for not being biblically literate like I should be. But I think the last stage was 5 or 10, right? He had to have imagination to engage God. And so I think that's an amazing thing when we talk about praying big enough. My friend Fernando, I should invite him to this. He said he likes to say, people pray in sizes. Think about that. And that, we shouldn't pray in sizes. We should just pray with imagination, and we should pray with that boldness. And so, yeah, that's great stuff. Did you have one more?
Yeah, I do. Do you want to pull it up, or you just want me to tell you?
I don't trust my computer to do that right now, so no.
Okay. As several of you guys were talking, my mind just went on a journey, and it just came to Genesis 1. So I'm going to read this portion, and I just want you to see the steps of imagination, and hopefully God enlightens it to all of us. So I'm just going to read one portion. So Genesis 1:9. Then God said, "Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and gathering of waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plant yielding seed, and fruit trees on the earth bearing fruit after their kind, with seed in them." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plant yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seeds in them after their kind. God saw that it was good, and it was day and it was morning. One thing that really struck me is it's almost like you can hear God having a thought, and then it happens. So if you go back in verse 9, you can hear God's thought, "Let the waters below the heavens be gathered, and let the dry land appear." And then verse 10 talks about it happening. And so he's imagining, this is what I'm going for. And then he talks about him doing it. And it just struck me. I went and looked at all of it. Every day is like that. Every day he has this thought. He has an imagination of what he wants to do. I mean, and the one that struck me in the beginning was, "Let us create man in our image." He has an imagination of what I want to do, how I want to create them. And then he does it. And he's super creative with it. You know, he doesn't do it like anything else. He gets down and dirty with it, you know. So it really spoke to me.
I wanted to share, because when you were talking about the creation and all that, he actually had love in his heart first, I think. And I think, I don't remember who was saying, imagine what good looks like, right? And that's what he did. He imagined what good looks like to get to the final product. And I think that's what we do in our businesses. We have to keep imagining what good looks like, right? So our imagination is really key to all this. And imagination comes when you have that love inside. You're like excited. You want this. Now you've got it for you, but now you want to create it for others, right? And I just see God's heart in just Genesis. It's just so beautiful. You know, it's just kind of opened my mind, just wowed me.
That's really good. And if you look at it, what Leslie's saying is literally tied in right here, that love is part of that formula, which is really interesting, actually. That's awesome. Wow, good stuff. Well, we are over on time. We have to pray, and so we're going to stop the Facebook Live, and we're going to stop recording as well. We may or may not come back to these other talking points later, but we may leave them on the notes when we send. I think we will probably send out the notes again, since that was a blessing to you, Leslie. It'll inspire us to do that again. And the way the prayer works is